Hey there guys, so in this tutorial we're basically going to be working with 3D space, that's 3D layers, 3D cameras, 3D lights, to create this kind of animated camera movement through a bunch of 2D layers that are then set up in a 3D XYZ system. We'll be playing with focal depth, animated camera like I said. It's really cool exercise for creating some content in After Effects. You can see here I've got a brick wall, I've got a couch that's a PNG that's cut out, I've got a window which is PNG, so this part here is transparent, I've got a floor, okay, I've got a woodsy background for my back window, and so it's just some content here. And then of course I said I'm also going to talk about camera tracking, so I've got some drone footage that I got from the library from that's weird. Maybe it'll let me play it inside of After Effects, but it does say 4K drone, which is disappointed. I want 4K. Now, where did it go? Maybe I'll have to find, let me see. Ooh, I like that one even better. Come on. Wait for it to load. There we go, just do this. So you see it's drone footage that's moving. It'll be very cool because I can put things in there like text and title and logos and graphics, and it'll fly through there, which is pretty cool. So just a bunch of different resources just to talk about using 3D layers, lights, cameras. Shut that down. All right, so let me go ahead. And yes, I have finally resolved, I believe, my issues I was having with my computer. I had about 5 different versions of Maya installed on my machine, so I was the biggest file in my machine, the software apps. So I deleted all but the most recent, and it gave me about 15, 20 gigs back.
That's a lot.
That's enough, right?
Yeah. 5 different versions of Maya?
Yeah, it went all the way back to like 2018, 19, 20, all that. So, yes.
Fun times.
Okay. So here we are again, back in good old After Effects. Remember our window workspace we're working in? I'm just using the default. Okay, now a lot of people were asking even about where we can find things like effects and presets. Someone reached out to me. If you go to effects and presets, let that load. You go to animation presets, you go to text. That's where you have, again, your animate text and all that stuff. Or if you don't know, you can always just type here. Because a great example would be if I was to do like camera tracker, you can see, hey, there's the camera tracker right there for perspective in 3D. So just good to know that if you can't find things here, you could always go to the search tab there. I don't know why my workspace is not. Let's reset. Okay. So let's talk about this 3D layers and systems. Okay, so I'm going to grab, let's see here, a scene. Okay, so I basically, like I said, I'm going to recreate a 3-dimensional room. All right, so I've got, like I say, I've got the bricks, the couch, the window, the wood floor, and the woods background here, and I'm just going to drag them into my composition. Single composition, sure. Now the problem, of course, is you see it brought them all down here, but it doesn't know, you see the composition is 275 by 183, which, by the way, I don't really like the size of my brick wall, but I'll make it work. Now the problem with that is it based the size on what? On the first image it chose. So remember, we still have to come up here and make sure that we do our HD 1920 by 1080. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose a length of time. Let's go with 15 seconds or something. Okay, and you can see now all that I've got here. Now that brick wall I'm not very content with. It's too small of a file. So let me just go back before I did that. Well, let's just do it this then. Brick wall. Don't forget our neat little trick here, tool size large. That's the mistake I did there. And let's just use, I'll use that brick wall there. Yeah, that's nice and large. Save image as, make sure it's a JPEG. Okay, get that downloaded. Download. Oh, I guess it went to the right place. Okay, so, and remember, because I brought in this brick wall here, you can see it's so small. What I can do, I can select it, right-click it, replace it, and I'm going to replace it with the new one I just put in there. This one. And suddenly, I get a nice big brick wall. Now, as I said before, though, the process of doing this is going to be three-dimensional, not just 2D layers. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to activate all this 3D element here. And what that's going to enable me to do, though, is I'm going to come in here and make this be a little bit shorter so I can get this here. Okay, 2 views. Remember, that's going to give me a active camera view. And this one here, I'm going to choose my top view. Let's go ahead and activate transparency on these so we know what transparent looks like. And I'm going to turn off, let's see, let's start with just the, I'm going to start with just the wood floor. Okay, so you see I have my wood floor here. Now that's looking at my camera. This is looking from the top. Now what's the first thing we can tell if I want to build a, think of like building a stage. I'm building a 3D space. Well, if I go into transform here, the first thing I know, if this is from the front, is I'm going to want to turn my floor, let's do a -90. Let's go ahead and move it down to the ground. And you see what I'm doing here, right? I'm literally turning this into a floor. Scale it. Let's unhook that and scale it this way. As you can see, I'm looking at the top down to see, whoops, what my floor and the scaling is going to be. So remember, we're looking at this way right here. I'll move that a little bit closer to my camera. So it's now horizontal, not vertical. Does that make sense? All right. So that's the floor. Now, let's get our brick in here. Now again, our brick wall, you can see where I can transform. Maybe I'll move it up in X. And you see where it's located here on our floor, so I'll move it back to our floor, right about there. See, it's right here. Maybe that would be better if I did that. So you can see it is right back here aligned with the back floor. The problem is I need a left wall and a right wall. So I'm going to duplicate that wall. And I'm now going to rotate it, what? 90. But now this needs to be pushed over to the far right of our floor, which is right there. See how I now aligned it right there? Duplicate that one, Control D, and I'm going to rotate this one -90. And I'm going to move it over to the other side of our floor. So you're actually seeing now, you see, even from the top-down view, it literally is a room. Now, I don't have a ceiling on here, so I could even give myself a ceiling. Maybe I'll just go Layer, New, Solid. We'll make it a white ceiling. And the beautiful thing when you're dealing with 3D is it doesn't need to be in the correct layer because we're putting it in the right space. this one needs to be 90 degrees. And now I'm just going to position this up until it creates our ceiling. Now, if you need to align this better, you can switch from the top to the right or the left-hand view, and you can see now where you can see I can line this up to the top of my brick layers. See where it needs to be lined up to the top here. So I'm literally building a virtual cube, a room. So think about what you could do here. You could literally put like artwork. If I filmed on a green screen, I could put my green screen of a character dancing around in here. It's just very neat that we can do that. Let's switch back down to top. And if you don't, again, it is a white ceiling. Don't worry about it because once I add lights, it'll really start to illuminate. Maybe I want my floor. Where's my wood floor? Let's go ahead and I'm going to move my wood floor down a little bit. I can probably get away with that. The wood floor? Oh, no, that was my window. The transparency. And so you can already see I'm starting to build this room. So let's think about some lights now. Now I don't have a light source in. Okay, remember in any 3D, if you're going to have lighting, you want to provide a lighting source. But I don't have one justified yet, so I'm just going to create a default little spotlight. Okay, and I like to play around with my colors here, so maybe I'll make it a little bit more on the warm side. Cast shadows, sure. Hit OK. And you see now I can control my lighting. I'll move that back. And let's go back here to just the one view a second to see what we've got. Okay? I just realized here I didn't have my layers stretched back out when I moved to 15 seconds. There again, you can see this little room I've built. Now, at any time, I can double-click that light, turn up the volume a little bit, see? And you see we have the ceiling, left wall, right wall, floor. Now, I could, if I want to, see, come up here to position and kind of move that light around, or even rotate that light, see? To kind of play around with how I'm going to go down. So, all right, so you see my space. It might be a little dark on your end. You'll get to see this once we actually add a light source. Let's place our window in here, right? So, got the window in now, but let me switch back to my 2 view, because you can see here in the top down, I need my window to go all the way to the back wall, whoops, which is right here, or just in front of that back wall. Go ahead and scale it. It's a little big. Kind of like that there. Position it up a little bit. Still a little bit large. Okay, looks good. Now the problem is, you see, like I said, this is a PNG of this window. It's got transparency. The problem is my back wall needs to have a mask to cut out the brick. Now I could have done that in Photoshop, right? But I'm just going to use this little shape tool here, but I have to have that layer selected. Okay, and so I'm basically just using the shape vector to cut out the brick. However, that mask needs to be inverted, and now you see we have transparency there. So remember, we can always recreate the illusion of Photoshop here in After Effects. All right. Now, where's our couch? Let's turn that on. Okay, we can already see where our couch is a little too large. Oops, it's a little too small now. Scale it up. Now I'm going to leave the couch in the middle of the room rather than putting it all the way back. Maybe I'll just put it a little bit further back. Go ahead and move it down to the ground. Now again, if I don't know how close to get to the ground here, switch one of these views up and say, hey, go back to the left. Okay, and then I can, whoops, wrong layer. You can see all I'm looking for is that little white point there. That's the actual points that are along the bottom of that JPEG. So all I gotta do is kind of line that up till it hits my floor, and that'll give the illusion of it actually being on the floor. Right. So this is why I always say it's very similar to what we're dealing with when we're talking about, say, like a theater, like a high school theater set. You know, where you've got the stage and then you have all those little flat two-dimensional, what are called flats, where they put scenery on, and then you have the backdrop. That's the actual, back. And so you can recreate a three-dimensional space with just two-dimensional layers. So that's all I'm pretty much doing here. All right, here's my woods. Let's activate the woods. Once again, that is a very, very, very small file, too small for my taste. Let's say woods, tools, size, large. Just remember we're doing 1920 by 1080. So the images that are further away need to be much larger because they're being pushed back into space. This is the one I wanted to do. Let's see, open image new tab. Nice big image here. Oh yeah. Let's save image as. And now I can come here to the woods and replace it with the new one. And suddenly, boom, nice and large. There we go. And once again, let's switch down to the top-down view. Okay, and let's put the woods where? All the way in the back, way back there. See? Way behind. And you see it shows up now in our window. Maybe I'll just put it a little bit higher up. And you see, hey, look at that. It's actually in the scene. Now let's go ahead and place, I don't have I could bring in a light, like an actual wall sconce or a lamp and put a light to it or something like that. For now, let's put a point light, just to give a little bit more light in there. Now a point light, as opposed to a spot, which is a directional light, a point light is just going to give off light in a surrounding circle. I don't want this to be too bright. Okay, and let me go ahead and put this maybe, this will be interesting. Let's put this light in Basically, I'm putting it along the couch line, but I'll put it to the left of the couch. Make sure I'm inside that wall. And now you can really see where we've got a heck of a shot, right? You can see I've created this 3D space. Go ahead and just temporarily Control S to save it. Right, and this 5, right? Last name, 3D space, and I'll just call this 01. But you can clearly see now where I've totally built a 3-dimensional space now out of just these 2-dimensional little layers. Well, what can we do with it? Layer, new, camera. Now, this is where we can have some fun because you can see I can make a custom camera. Now, the default is a 50 millimeter. If you don't know about cameras, 50 millimeter pretty much replicates what our eyes do, okay? It's very similar to what you typically get as opposed to, say, a narrow lens, which is similar to like what your phones do, or a fisheye lens, a GoPro, where you get more extreme perspective, as opposed to, say, a telephoto lens, which stacks things up. So instead of a 50, I'm going to take this down to a 24 millimeter, a little bit more of a fisheye lens. And now you can see I'm looking through that new camera. And now that I'm looking through that new camera, here, okay, you can see how I can tumble around in my scene now. See that? Whether I'm tumbling around using the target, just remember what the camera has. It has a point of interest, which is what I'm moving around here. And it has the camera itself. You can see if I back up, you can really start to see now where I can really start to mess around now with some of my 2D layers. So let's stretch that floor out till it covers up the whole floor. Okay, I think that couch now can be brought down a little bit. So it's not floating in midair. Okay. And now, what's really cool, the whole point of all this is, I can now start to do animations by, well, moving or animating my camera. So I'm going to stretch my point of interest until it goes almost outside the window. So it's way past my background. See that? If I don't move my point of interest past what my target is, the camera will flip around and stay aiming at the point of interest. But now I can come in here and I'll just key position, point of interest, I don't know, X, Y, and Z vectors here. Maybe get to the end here. And I'm just going to push my camera now along the path until it basically starts to go out the window. Okay, and now I'm out the window. The problem, of course, is you saw I'm running into the couch. So this is where I'm going to move my camera up. Okay, so I'm actually animating the movement of the camera. And this is like anything else in moving in After Effects, that if I were to switch maybe to a side view, you're going to see the path of my camera now, see, and how it's getting from point A to point B. I can even have some fun here. Instead of the left, go back down to the top and say, hey, yeah, you know what? Let's have the camera swing over. Come on. Let's have the camera go a little bit to the right. Right about here. Let's have the camera go a little bit to the left. Okay? Now, remember, all these keys, though, are straight linear keys. To make it smooth, right click, keyframe assist, easy ease. And let's see what this camera now looks like. Let's go to a one view. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. So again, I'm still in classic 3D. I'm not using ray tracing or anything fancy like that right now. Let's make this fit. There we go. And let's change this from full to quarter quality. And I hit the space bar to preview it. And so I'm literally moving through 3D space. None of my layers are moving. My camera is animating through the scene. And oops, I could definitely do a little bit at the end here with my camera. Change that keyframe in position and go a little bit more to the left. And that tells me what almost by now? That almost tells me that, hey, you know what? My woods, they need to be further back. So I'll move them further back into Z. Okay? Because the woods look like they're about a quarter mile away, but in the top-down view, they were almost right behind my wall. So let's put those way in the back there. The space bar again. For those of you that might be 3D animation students and might understand the 3D space using Maya or 3ds Max or Softimage or any of the 3D software, this in After Effects is pretty gosh darn impressive.
Would you say it's easier than using Adobe 3D Substance Stager?
It's easier in the sense that's a whole nother software you don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you could, again, just very cool kind of way of working here. I could even take my light here if I want to. Go to the very beginning here. Watch this, how this works. Here's my spotlight. Here it is here. Okay, I'm going to narrow my cone angle of my spotlight so it's a little bit sharper. And watch this even. Hey, spotlight. Parent to my camera. Okay, so now the light is parented to the camera, and now so my spotlight, almost like a flashlight attached to a camera, is going to move with the camera movement. And that's pretty neat. Very cool, simple stuff. Like I say, you used to see this back in the day in a lot of like DVD menus, where it would animate an opening and then you'd fly the camera through, and like doors would. Ooh, I'll tell you what. Let's have some fun now that I got my computer performing it a little better. Okay, let's go ahead and open Photoshop here. Let's have these windows open out as we approach it. All right, so I'm just going to launch my Photoshop so I could. And again, I don't even really, actually don't have to do that, do I? No, I'm not going to use Photoshop. Why not? Let's not use Photoshop. Let's have some fun with this. Okay? So I'm going to back up till I can see my window here. I'm not going to use Photoshop. Because I already got it where I need it to be. There's my window. Okay? I'm going to duplicate that window right where it is. And I'm going to hide the back one there. So I have just this window, and I'm going to do the same technique I did with the bricks on the window. Okay. And I'm going to cut out the frame like so. You see, I still have my window, but the top window is the panel. The bottom window is just the frame. At least that's what I just tried to do. What did it do? Oh, that's right. Okay. So you see, you just delete, duplicate. There's this one here, underneath. It is going to be, wait a minute, did I delete the wrong thing again? Hold on, let's do that again. Window. That. Now I can delete it or duplicate it. This one will get inverted. We go ahead and lock that. And now, this mask I just created duplicate it. This mask here is going to be just this part of the window. That's what I'm going to do right there. This little piece of window done. Just using my little arrows. There's that. Now you can imagine if I was using Photoshop, I would have that window broken up into 3 layers. The frame, the left panel, and the right panel. Now I'm just kind of doing that freehand here with the shape tool. Mask it off. You see I got that one now done. But before I'm completely done there, on the transform side, anchor point. I'm going to put the anchor point over where the hinge would be, right? Because I'm going to have these windows swing open as my camera approaches. Make it look like the camera is flying out the window. So I can move that anchor point there. Now let's move the position and put it back to where it needs to be. I guess it goes something like there. Okay, let's do the other window now. Once again, we're just going to take the mask, cut that window in half now. Move the anchor point the other direction now. Way. Too far. Okay. And I did notice that this one I locked my mask. I'm just going to those 2 points, nudge them up. These 2 points, nudge it down. These 2 points to the right. These 2 points to the left. deselect, and you can see I do have some cleanup, obviously, with my masks on my windows. The other cool thing I've got here is actually even an expansion. So maybe if I just do an expansion, 2, 4 pixels, 7 pixels, 8 pixels, down. I'm trying to get rid of that little error. Now, what am I going to do right about here as I'm approaching the window? Watch this. Just remember, we do have rotate Ys. I'm going to start by rotating that in Y there. Where's my other window? Rotate Y. I'm going to offset that just a few frames because I don't like twinning. Twinning is when things happen at the same time. Kind of like watching, our politicians speak with their hands moving back and forth like a monkey with the cymbals. It doesn't look natural. So you want to offset things a little bit. Okay, and right about here, go ahead and have this, let's see, it's going to be positive, negative. Oh, there we go. It's going to rotate outward like that. Very cool. Easy ease, that's F9. See, just like that. And this one's going to roll away that way. Again, F9. And because those are animating and keyframing inside of the movement of the camera, I'm going to turn on the false motion blur there. So let's just look at when it approaches those windows now. Watch how cool. They're going to open up. See? Isn't that neat? So my camera now is flying right out the window. Of course, now I don't need my camera at the very end there to take such a left turn. So you can imagine, sound effects, sounds of doors opening, footsteps. It almost starts to play almost like if you see a lot of these like Unity-style games or these app-based games that have these little opening sequences. It kind of has that feel. I mean, this is where, if you remember last week, we even played around with some of those cool effects such as, lighting effect, or not lighting, but, smoke and dust. Let's see if I have that. That was in the broadcast comp. Is that it? Flamethrower, fire. What is that? I don't know what these are. What is this? Okay, that's good. Jeep. Open title, that's where it was. And it was Dynamic Fog. Remember, this Dynamic Fog had an alpha associated with it. So I'll just drag it in. Okay, now I'm going to switch back over here to make sure I've got my 2 cameras because I need to take that video and put it just outside the window, let's say. So there's my dynamic fog, activated 3D, put it outside the window. Now, of course, you notice, if you recall, that this is still a 2-dimensional layer, and it isn't truly alpha'd, so I need to use a blending mode out there. Linear dodge, we'll see how that looks inside. But this is also the other thing you have to be careful of is that because you're putting everything in the 3D system, there's material attributes. For example, I probably don't want the fog to be affected by the light. So I'm going to turn that off. You can see now the problem with my fog is it's really, really small. Maybe I want to turn down some of the opacity so it isn't quite as thick. I'm concerned a little bit that it's not the right blending mode. It's blending mode. Okay. Multiply. Nope. Add. Kind of like that. Doors open. You can see that fog. See that? This also is, I'm not very happy with the way that my woods are coming across because the way the light is playing with it. When you put things in 3D, the light affects it. But the truth is this woods, it's the background. It shouldn't be changing color or light based upon the lighting that's there. So I'll turn off the lights of it. Okay? And it'll just look like a natural thing that it is. You see that little fog kind of dancing through as the doors open up, or the windows open up, and now I'm moving through the fog, kind of. Back to one view. And I could keep building and building and building. I mean, even something as simple as I could put a logo graphic, or I could put text in here. I mean, something as simple as words. So, find, let's see here. Maybe I am going to make a little viral ad campaign for Airbnb or something like that, right? Something very, very simple. Okay. Word find. To view. Switch this to an easy to read font. Okay. Put it dead center. And I'm going to move it a little bit closer to the camera. And I'm going to have this last a very short amount of time. So maybe I'll have it. Oops, material, I'll say set lights off, so it's just clean text. Opacity. Zero. Okay, so just a quick little fade up and and fade out of the word find. And because I'm putting it in relation to the camera, okay, I'll put it there. I'm going to duplicate that word find. Put one here. Send this further back. Move it inside the window. It's kind of outside the window. Double click that. I'll say your smaller. That one. Okay. Head away. Now this one, I'm going to put it outside the window. Smaller. And finally, just to have some fun here, right? Airbnb logo PNG. I'm not going to do much fancy with it. And it looks like they all kind of use. You know it's a true PNG when it starts off solid white and then turns transparent after a second. Airbnb logo PNG transparency. Just a single layer. It can be brought in as footage. And layers don't matter here because we're placing things in 3D space. I've got my 3D logo, or let's put that behind the others. It only needs to be a short amount of time. And let's go ahead and animate it. Opacity. Now, everything I'm showing you here could be combined with some of that neat, 3D, even, using the Cinema 4D ray trace and everything, and it spins around like I did last week. You could do that in space. Just be aware that it does eat a lot of memory. Okay, let's switch this back to one view. Where did our Airbnb? Where's it at? Oh, whoops. See? Wrong location. This is supposed to be back there. There we go. And again, you see how the light is affecting it? The material options and say, hey, I don't want it to accept the lights. Turn it off. See that light transmission. Trying to get it to be a little bit more, or a little bit less blown out like that. Yeah, it's kind of might require me to do a color correction, brightness, say hue saturation. Let's make it darker, saturate it more. There we go. I could have so much neat fun with this. I could say, yeah, right about there, Airbnb, that's where it's going to be in its position. Here, I know someone just popped out. Let's go ahead and have that animate down into the shot. Like that. Let's key its Y rotation. We'll have it rotate 3 times. Have all these guys. F9 them. Put some motion blur because it's moving. Hit the save. A second, let me see who's chiming in. Oh, they're in there. Okay. So you can see just how much you can add. I could, even if, I don't know if I could find it here, but, if I were to go to maybe the links, library, do I have like alpha channel birds or something like that I could have just back there behind the logo to have like some birds fly by, maybe leaves falling, right? Some kind of other additional video element or effect element. Now I could animate a bird pretty easily, right? As a 2D layer. Let's say alpha channel birds flying. Who knows? It's a pretty common thing to search for. Two white doves, kind of slow motion. All I need is, there's some green screen of some birds. I may actually go with the 2 doves flying. I mean, it'll look a little bit too much like a Prince video, but hey. Although I don't think they're alpha channel. Let's do this one instead. Okay? And that's green screen, because it's a great chance for me to talk about green screen. What if you have green screen footage? Okay, I'm just going to go with HDV. Now, go to HD MP4, H.264. My downloads. So what if we want to work with green screen footage? Well, here's my flock of birds. Let me go ahead and load them in. Okay. And of course, they're just going to be annoying. Okay, just got them in here. Now, how do I get rid of that green? Watch how cool this is. Effect, keying, key light. And over here, it's going to say, what's the screen color? Green. Just like that, gets rid of the green, and you can see the flock of birds there. But don't forget, these birds need to be placed in there, so they need to be 3D layered. And then the top down, I'm going to need to move them to where they need to go. So they're going to need to go, I'll put them in front of the logo, but in front of the logo and in front of my background forest. Don't forget when you do that, you have sent it very far away, so it does need to be scaled up to fit the screen, right? And I may want to wait and put them there. Let's see, when do we see the flock of birds? I may have to double-click this to see. Are they immediate, or do they happen a little bit? That's still here. If you ever need to check things out, guys, to see if they're working properly, see, it's a flock, I can double-click it here. Notice this window looks different. It's got this weird little, red, green, blue. We've got this blue bar here. This is in what's called footage or layer mode. That means we double-clicked by accident, and now we're just in that layer. It's like the birds are there pretty much the whole time, so I can pretty much leave it the whole. All right. If you're in this layer or footage mode, just X out, because you see over here is the composition. So I don't really need this one open. That's what happens when you accidentally double-click something. Okay. And last but not least here, I'm just going to come to the material again for this and say, hey, it does not accept lights. All right, so what did we end up with? Let me make it fit. This bar. Now this is going to probably take up quite a bit of RAM because I'm flying through the scene with all these 3D layers. I haven't even told anything here to cast shadows or anything like that, but that's a simple thing in the layer, in the materials. You simply say, hey, cast shadows.